What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to give you a quick overview of some of the current data points, what shorts did, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did manage to pull a green day today, so up 0.26%. But throughout the day, it's been at the mercy of the broader market. And there's been a lot of things moving the market today, one of which was just the yields going up. Secondly, companies unveiling their earnings, not necessarily the most favorable, especially coming from the industrials. So a lot of things is affecting the broader market today, and especially after hours, you did see SoFi pull down slightly, almost like 1%, and that is a byproduct of big bad Facebook or Meta, whatever the hell you want to call them. So they did miss on their earnings pretty significantly. And tomorrow will be another roller coaster because the market's going to be digesting Facebook's earnings as well as GDP. So that will be a crazy roller coaster. So again, SoFi has just been very bad or poorly timed for their earnings. Obviously, no fault to SoFi by any means. Similar kind of scenario did happen in Q3. I think there was just a massive sell-off due to just inflation numbers. So leading into SoFi's earnings, there was a massive sell-off. So I was kind of joking at the time, so that's Q3 2023, but I was saying that maybe because we're selling off, it'll be inverse that post their earnings, it'll go up. I don't believe that was the case, but still, we'll just have to wait and see. It really does suck. Time again, every single one of SoFi's earnings, which is usually a triple beat, like all the time, constant, like, and a very good solid one as well, but they always just sell off. It's just a very crappy scenario, and hopefully this time around the market is kind of warming up to SoFi, because you have seen 2024 be very welcoming to future guidance rather than true results. So not to say that SoFi's upcoming earnings is going to be subpar, but we did see with Tesla that if you give good future guidance, and it's exactly what the market does want, similar to, I believe Visa actually did the exact same thing, like the market will appreciate that. So maybe this time around, SoFi and Chris and obviously Anthony will be able to kind of calm the market, calm investors, and just say, hey, we got our shit under control and everything else. So that's just my own interpretation, of course. Today, there was no news, no SEC filings, nothing like that. Fairly high for volume. So 39.7 million shares being traded, 40.95 is the average. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market, majority of which were buys based on the bid, the ask, and the selling price. You can kind of tell that. A couple big ones, 1.14 million, 5.11 million, 1.65. So behind the scenes, big money was buying. As well, shorts, oddly, were returning some shares, 696,000 shares to be exact. 17.44% of the free float is being shorted. That works out to be 173.14 million shares overall are being shorted. Utilization 71.07. Cost to borrow average oddly did drop quite a lot compared to yesterday. So cost to borrow average is 0.5, and then the minimum is still negative, so negative 0.2. So it's kind of interesting the fact that this is happening leading into their earnings, because I don't see cost to borrow average dropping this low for a while now, or it hasn't been at these levels. So maybe there is more manipulation, or at least brokers are trying to manipulate SoFi to get to maybe below 750, because as I have brought up time and time again, SoFi has been really good at kind of gaining some momentum. But looking at the current open interest, you do see two walls, one of which is at that 750 strike price, and then the second is at the 8. So as you can kind of see, currently 23,000 in open interest at the 8 and 21,000 at the 750. Going into next week, you do see a couple strong walls, 750, 8, 850, 9. So essentially, if SoFi does hit a home run earnings and it goes up very fast, then you might see a little bit more of a gamma squeeze. So market makers covering premature on the Monday, that's kind of wishful thinking. We'll just have to wait and see ultimately. And so, as I said, big money did get into SoFi today, as well as just swing traders. Algorithmic trading was very active, but as was dark pool. So these are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So this is kind of showing some institutions must be buying, because if shorts did return, and plus their overall net amount wasn't really that high, so a lot of this is just large institutions, so no doubtably like BlackRock, Vanguard, using the dark pool. So maybe they are continuing to buy this time around, especially leading into the earnings. That might be somewhat of a positive sign. So again, we'll just have to wait for their upcoming 13F. So they just submitted their Q1. So for their Q2, they'll probably be in most likely August, I believe, late August, somewhere around there. But on the actual technicals itself, so I did do a video yesterday saying, will SoFi pass the test? And ultimately it doesn't really look like it, because in order for them to have passed the test, it needed to close above the 775. So the likelihood of it hitting, or at least $8 leading into the earnings, is somewhat diminishing. You never know, could see a very active Friday. But most likely what happens in the next couple of days is going to be dictated based off of GDP, PCE, as well as companies unveiling their earnings. So I think right now just maybe SoFi might be stagnant itself based on the just everything else for the rest of the week, leading into their earnings, again dependent on data. So you really want to watch for the 775 to be the next strong resistance and the target for it to get above. And if it does get above that, maybe let's say midway throughout tomorrow, which I don't anticipate happening, but you never know, if it does happen, then it could still have the possibility of seeing $8 plus leading into earnings. But still, I wouldn't really bet on that, in my opinion. But aside from that, on the actual chart itself, so it is higher percentile of the Bollinger Band. It did bounce off of that 50-day moving average. So again, that is going to be the next strong target for it to kind of be over tomorrow. You do see a nice bullish deviation on stochastic, and that is white line above the red, but it is at 43, so it is getting somewhat up there. So it's not considered oversold anymore, somewhat neutral. So if it does continue on the status quo, similar to exactly this time around, I did say there will be a inversion. So the first sign of fear or negativity, you will see it will prompt a very swift sell-off. And that is exactly what did happen here. So not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but if it does continue on its kind of upward trajectory, then probably around the $8 range or just slightly over that, you are going to see stochastic relatively high. So at that stage, the first sign of weakness, whether it be SoFi specific or the broader market, it will really prompt a quick sell-off, similar to what happened, like I said. But number of retail investors have been getting in over this last little bit. So yeah, I think retail is buying, institutions are buying, especially on the dark pool. So very quiet, secret buying that's been happening. Just not really much has been happening to the share price as usual. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on SoFi? Do you think it is going to be above $8 by the close of Friday, so going into their upcoming earnings? Or do you think that, I don't know, do you think it's going to be more of a to the lower end of 7? So what's your thoughts? As well, what is your thoughts on shorts returning almost 700,000 shares a couple days before their earnings? Do you think that means that they are kind of worried on something? Maybe FOMO will actually be kicking in either Thursday or Friday? Or do you think that maybe they're just waiting for GDP or PCE numbers to be negative? That way they can double down. What's your thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with all that, appreciate all of you watching.